Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for joining me for this, the final episode of the second round of the My Favorite WWF LJN tournament. So that is the round 2, part 20 of the tournament. Just an unbelievable undertaking of this tournament. Already the 60th episode of the tournament. Now think about it this way. The first time I did this tournament, in total, if you eliminate the introduction episode, basically the first tournament in its entirety was 26 episodes long. Okay, we're 60 episodes deep with today's episode, and we're only at the end of round 2. Unbelievable amount of figures to go along with the unbelievable amount of episodes in this third tournament. I will never be able to do another undertaking of this magnitude again. 320 figures. So I've said it before. I will always pick up new LJN figures, new customs. So in the future, if I do a My Favorite LJN tournament, I'm only going to incorporate new figures that obviously were not a part of these tournaments. That's going to be new. And B, figures that I absolutely love. Figures that I want you guys to see. And probably, obviously, from the original line, figures that deserve to be part of a tournament like this. That, the absolute front of the line, top elite figures. So you're not going to look at 200 plus, 300 plus figures. You're probably going to look at something around the lines of maybe 128 figures or something. So we can do a year 4, year 5, year 6 type of tournament. So it can be like a baseball season type of deal. Every year do a new tournament, but it's not going to be something this long. But again, it's always depending on whether or not the fans or the viewers are interested in something like that. But that's conversations for months and, years down the road, whether or not viewers are interested in that. I have the last 8 names to draw for this second round. And I'm excited because once we get into round 3 is we're only looking at 10 videos. And considering I've gone from 40 videos to 20 videos, a 10 video round is going to be a lot more manageable. So, first matchup we're going to look at is Animal Red. So that is Legion of Doom from Random Treasures, as he squares off against Abdullah the Butcher from Wrestling Rider. And right off the bat, killer matchup. Wow. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, as he will square off against... Alright, so this one says Randy Savage Special, Robert Jackson. And I think I messed up, because I think I pulled this figure already. Randy Savage Special. I'm going to go back real quick, because I think in round... Well, and there was... While I'm on here... Yep, there it is, as a matter of fact. Yep. Right here at the top of the page. Round 2-9. Macho Man Robert Jackson versus Butch Reed Special Custom. The Butch Reed Special figure push forward. So I think I screwed that one up. This one right here is the Special Robert Jackson. That's the this one should have been the Randy Savage with the good arm positioning, and the Macho Man that I had pulled, the Robert Jackson, it should have been the regular Series 3 Macho Man, that Series 3 custom, and that's not the one I pulled. So for this particular matchup, I am going to pull just the King, Macho King Randy Savage figure. So, based on the Dragon figure, I don't know if the special Randy Savage would have won that matchup either way, but oh man, that sucks. I think that would have been an interesting matchup if they actually squared off against each other, because yeah, that's the tough part about going off of so many figures. You are going to kind of mess up here or there. I do apologize for kind of messing that part up, though. All right. Back to the matchups. Luke versus Santa Claus. And last matchup is going to be Wrestling Writer Kerry Von Erich. And he will square off against Vince McMahon. Alright, so that's the last of the names. I will go ahead, pull the figures, and we will begin shortly. Alright, so let's dive in with the very first matchup, which is going to feature Abdullah the Butcher squaring off against Animal. So, I did a video, a short, probably, I don't know, maybe early 2024, who did it best type of deal. And we kind of looked at Abdullah the Butcher from both Ram Treasures and from Wrestling Rider. And of course, most people, they're going to gravitate towards the Abdullah the Butcher from Ram Treasures. Why? Because it is an original of sorts. It is Abdullah the Butcher himself. Whereas most people, when they look at this figure, they're going to see King Kong Bundy. And back in 2022, back in January of 2022, when I was initially looking at this figure from Eric, that's exactly what I saw. All I saw was King Kong Bundy. I'm like, it looks great. I'm like, I like the figure a lot, but am I really going to shell out the dough it takes to buy a figure like this when all it is a King Kong Bundy repaint? But after a while, I decided to pull the trigger and bought the figure. And for a figure that took me about a week or so, maybe 4 days, 5 days, I don't know how long it took me, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, I don't really remember, but it was something that took me a little while to decide to pull the trigger on. Nowadays, probably one of the top 5, top 6 all-time favorite figures that I bought from Eric. And one of the things you will notate from this figure that you don't get from the figure from Ram Treasures is that slice mark. Abdullah the Butcher, the man's been wrestling since at least the 70s. Famous all over Puerto Rico, Japan, all over the southern territories of the United States. Guy is psychotic. Hepatitis C, he is an interesting character to study and learn about, because he does carry like these devices or these little tools. Like he will sit around and carry a little fork around with him, and he'll sit there and he'll cut himself. And because he's got the sickness, right? And he's cutting himself, and then he'll go into the ring and he will pull out his fork, right? Now this is one of those things where, yeah, you want the fork to be big enough to actually be able to see, but when you look at this, it looks more like a freaking sword than a fork. But he will actually pull out the actual fork, and he'll literally actually jab the person for real, draw blood and stuff. I'm like, you're intentionally getting these people, intentionally infecting these people. Lunatic. A man that never wrestled professionally for WWF, yet he is a WWE legend, Hall of Famer. I'm like, how many people can boast those credentials? But then you got guys like Demolition, who are mega superstars, multiple tag team champions. You guys got like Barry Dorso, Repo Man, and Smash, right? And you're telling me guys like that can't be Hall of Famers in WWE? It's insane. There are other guys, again, Lex Luger being one of those guys who probably will never be WWE Hall of Famers, but Abdullah Butcher's a Hall of Famer, really. So, Abdullah Butcher, though, if you're going to look up and learn about any one particular character, I never watched Abdullah the Butcher. Until I bought this figure, I'd never even heard that name before. In fact, until I bought the Bruiser Brody figure from Eric, I'd never even heard about Abdullah the Butcher before. But again, getting into this collecting phase, you start learning about people and researching them, watching old videos and stuff. This has been one of my most fascinating people ever. So I think Bruiser Brody and Abdullah the Butcher are probably two of the most interesting people in wrestling. And their matches together were fascinating. So absolutely love the figure. And of course with the championship belt, the built-in accessories, the awesome scratches or cuts on the forehead. The only thing he doesn't have is the built-in, the elf shoes or whatnot. But everything else is insanely good. Okay? And then we've got... This is the tough part about this figure. This is an incredibly fantastic figure from Ram Treasures. With so many awesome pieces that have come out over the last, let's say, year and a half or so from Ram Treasures. And I'm throwing in, we already know Zeus is at the front of the line with Ram Treasures, right? But you throw in Dusty Rhodes. You throw in Jerry Lawler. You can throw in Undertaker, let's say, okay. The Rockers, yeah. I mean, I think they could probably be a top 15. Maybe not necessarily top 10, but they could be up there. Let me look at the shelf here. Mr. T's on that list. Berserker could be on that list. I think Brutus Beefcake could possibly be on the top 10 nowadays. So... maybe Abdullah Butcher could be potentially top 5. Your demolition figures could potentially be in your top 5, top 7, maybe in the top 10 or so somewhere. So, maybe Legion of Doom Black, with obviously with the spikes, with the chest plates and everything. Those figures might replace what I classify as Legion of Doom Red. So you got Legion of Doom Black, Legion of Doom Red. So are these guys not necessarily in the top 10 anymore? Probably not. Still incredible figures. I still classify these as elite figures among Ram Treasure elites. And face paint, among any of your wrestling action figures out there, among the best of the best. The muscles and detail, you get into the crevices, it's like you literally took a body and just shrunk it down. A little x-ray machine, with a little shrink machine or something. That is how perfect and accurate detail of these figures are. With the pants and the boots design, immaculate, incredible work. Head sculpt, fantastic. The only bad thing about the figure that I've always said is this right here, the play pose. Now, if they had literally expanded the arms and turned this into Big John Studd, you just went from maybe an 8 figure to maybe a 9.7, just like that, just by making a Big John Studd. Maybe even a 10. I mean, he's probably still a 10, even with the Ken Patera pose. Maybe not a hard 10. Maybe a soft 10. I don't know. I'm very weird with the way I rate things. I don't know, man. When I mention the figures, and I say this a lot, when I draw the names, I kind of think about how I might choose them, and I thought maybe Animal had the leg up when I first started talking about it. History tells me I know more about Legion of Doom. I covet Legion of Doom. I grew up watching Legion, my favorite tag team. I would love to see a member of Legion of Doom make it as far in this tournament as possible. But I am still so freaking crazy about this character. I know Random Treasures Abdul the Butcher is still in this tournament. One-on-one, if this figure and the Random Treasure squared off, which one do I choose? Which one? I don't know. In all honesty, they both have attributes that I really enjoy. So I don't know necessarily which one I would like, which one I would choose, which one I enjoy more. I still love the bulkiness and thickness of the figure. I mean, Bundy is a favorite figure for a particular reason, right? I can look at Animal as an actual playable figure. That gives him a leg up. I gotta go with the Butcher, though. For a figure that I didn't even covet that much and wasn't even willing to buy right away, today I classify as probably being a top 5, top 6 favorite figure from Wrestling Rider, and arguably probably one of my top 20 all-time favorite figures of my entire collection. Yeah, I have to. I have to push him into round 3. Even if he's out after round 3, I have to give him the opportunity to advance as far as possible. I enjoy this figure. I enjoy talking about this figure. So, for me, it's the right selection. I know fans at home are watching like, nah, man, that's the wrong choice. You got to go with Animal. But, like I said, for me, the Butcher is the right answer. Next matchup is going to feature Ricky Steamboat as he squares off against Macho Man. So Ricky Steamboat against Macho Man. Alright, so here's the deal. I talked about it when I looked that up in the notes. My notes said, or the little tag, it said Macho Man, Robert Jackson, and it was supposed to be this figure. This is actually the figure that was supposed to square off. I don't know if you can make it out, but that fancy, no, you can't see it. Actually, you might be able to, but right there, the yellow trunks, SD Jones. You know, the one that kind of, yeah, SD Jones that kind of looks like this right here. Not SD Jones, I'm sorry. SD Jones, I'm sorry. Butch Reed. That kind of looked like that. That looked like that Mr. T figure. It was that, what I call it, classify as the special Butch Reed. It was supposed to square off against this Macho Man figure. But because I said Macho Man from Robert Jackson, I was thinking it was the new special Macho Man. The one that was kind of like this. I completely forgot about this figure. Maybe I didn't even realize that this one had moved on to the second round. I don't know. But kind of looking at this matchup right here, I know SD Jones. I keep calling him SD Jones. I'm going to confuse myself. I know I'm confusing you guys at home. I know Butch Reed would have defeated this Macho Man figure. And kind of looking at this matchup, I don't know if the upgraded Macho Man figure would have defeated this variant of Ricky Steamboat. So, does it really matter? Keep dropping. And that's one of the great things I like about built-on accessories. Because a lot of time these darn things, they keep popping off, right? So I got a couple of these different Macho King variants. And I like the one that Rob did, obviously. His accessories actually worked. The one I had from Eric, his crown busted off in like no time, and that kind of sucked. So I got to kind of look through a lot of my customs, and I gotta look at a lot of the customs that I have as duplicates and see if I'm actually interested in selling any of the duplicates. Problem is, even if I decided one day that, hey, I wouldn't mind selling any of the duplicates, would I be getting the value back? Like if I paid $85 on this as an example, would I get $85 back? I doubt it. Maybe 45-ish. Possible, I don't know. But even if I bought it for 85 and I sold it for 75, I don't know if I take that. Like I said, when I buy these figures, they're special to me, right? They're part of the collection, and it's hard to let go of something that's part of this. You spent so much time and dedicated so much time to building this collection that it holds a special meaning to you. So you don't want to buy these things to resell them. They're part of you essentially. So and this particular figure, like I said, Rob he did an absolutely amazing job with this Macho Man figure. I know this figure is not going to win the tournament. I know this figure will not defeat Ricky Steamboat, but for those fans of Macho Man, I at the very least would like to give the opportunity to showcase the figure. So I am not just simply dropping it down, and viewers do get the opportunity to kind of see the different graphics of the figure. So, and I like even the championship belt. You know, it's fantastic. All right, so I'm going to talk about this Ricky Steamboat figure again. And when I talk about Ricky Steamboat, I mention that I don't think about the sort of ninja look that you get of Ricky Steamboat back in the 80s, right? When you look at LJN Ricky Steamboat Series 3 in all black, I am not familiar with that Ricky Steamboat. I like to think about Hasbro Ricky Steamboat, right? I think about the dragon. This is the Ricky Steamboat that I remember from childhood. This is the Ricky Steamboat that I'm familiar with. And this is, in fact, one of my 10. For those viewers who might be tuning in for the very first time and don't know what my 10 means, well, when I have gone through these figures after the first round, after looking at the figures, after talking about them, reviewing them, I've kind of looked at about 10 figures or so, estimated, that I figured had the best opportunity of winning this tournament. And already after these first couple of rounds, already a couple of those figures that I figured had a great chance of winning have already been eliminated. So obviously it's not guaranteed, but this is one of those figures I looked at and I'm like, man, I got to do this LJN tournament again. Because I think that this is one of those figures that might actually be my new favorite figure. The overall look of the figure is insanely good. His fighting pose with the whole Galoob Tom Zank may not be the greatest, but this is something that I covet. And even though his accessory, built on, but it's still kind of like movable. It flaps in the wind, right? It is an incredible freaking look. Even with the little lizard skin graphic pants, this is perfect. I have 3 favorites right now. Well, three custom favorites, I should say. Bruiser Brody, because he's already a 2-time champion. He's got to be on my pedestal of favorites to win. That's a no-brainer. Colonel Mustafa because of the detail and graphics that went into that figure. Yes, it's an Iron Sheik figure, but he's got to be a fan favorite. He's got to be very high on my list. And I do think that this particular figure, yes, those three have to be very high up on my list. I still think that the Sid Vicious Galoob 2-Up has got to be very high on my list because of what that particular figure, the Sid Vicious Galoob, meant to me basically my entire life. I still think that Big Boss Man is one of those LJNs that is just basically perfect all around. And I'll put this list up after this round, but I'll do a little bit more thorough. Because characters like Big John Studd and Kamala are constantly in the semifinals or later, those two figures are always going to find their way. I think Hulk Hogan will finally find his way towards the end this tournament. If it's not the original, it might be one of the customs. I think that's going to be a surprise entrant. Zeus. You might find Zeus towards the end. You might even find Dustin Rhodes towards the end here. So, off the top of my head, those are just a few of the favorites that I think you might find at the end. I think Rhythm and Blues Greg Valentine could be towards the end. But any of these figures could square off against each other and find and eliminate the other. So, it's not guaranteed, but that's the fun part about this tournament. And another thing is, this second round has proven that anything could happen. I'm going to give you guys another look because, like I said, this figure is so darn good that I feel like you guys deserve the opportunity to kind of look at it as much as humanly possible. Next matchup is going to feature Luke, and he does battle against Santa Claus. So, I think if Luke wins this matchup, I think he's going to end up doing some major freaking damage. I think a third round, if he makes it to the third round, that's going to be a fantastic run. Even if he doesn't go any further than the third round, I mean, I said before that basically any figures that are eliminated in the first two rounds, it's basically like, it means nothing. It's kind of like an embarrassment. For first two rounds, first round elimination is like, you know what? You're basically a crappy figure. You know what? If you made it to the second round and have been eliminated, it's like, okay, maybe you made it to the second round by the skin of your teeth. Maybe you just beat an inferior figure. Not a big deal. But if you made it to the third round, maybe you're good enough, but just not great. Fourth round is really when you could say, okay, you had a decent run type of deal. And here's the thing, with some of these figures, like with the Bushwhackers, if either Bushwhacker figure makes it to the third round, I think it's going to be a pretty solid run. I don't think that the Bushwhackers are terrible figures. In fact, I think the Bushwhackers are fantastic figures from Random Treasures. I think from the waist down, I think that they are probably some of the better figures that Random Treasures has made. I absolutely love the camouflage pants that they have. The cargo pants, especially the way that the cargo pockets shoot out, are exceptionally well done. The boots, I don't know. There's not really so much you could say about the boots. I mean, you look at a lot of combat boots. Tongue is black, laces are black, overall boots are black. I mean, there's not really much you could do there. I do say a lot of time, you could do like jungle boots or something. Maybe have like green boots. Maybe like the tongue is black. Maybe green laces or something. Kind of have like red. You could have like red boots with like white laces. Maybe a black tongue. I don't know, something like basically have like multiple colors to kind of offset the boots or something, right? I like multiple colors because they kind of it gives you something different graphics. But with black boots, it is what it is. It's a fantastic figure. T-shirt, basic wife beater, not much to it. Rubber and everything for the figure is solid. Great facial expression, right? Fighting pose is adequate. This is still a very playable figure. I mean, it's not gonna be one that you're gonna go to if you're a kid or anything like that. But if I'm a kid and I'm using this as a figure in a Royal Rumble, I can do some things with it as a tag team. Something I'm putting together for like a 5 to 10 minute match. Sure, I can make use out of it. I probably wouldn't use these guys as tag team champions because it's not a go-to enjoyable tag team, but it is a serviceable piece. I do think they're good figures and I think they're serviceable figures that are capable of a third round run. But the Santa Claus figure. There is one Hillbilly Jim Santa Claus figure that has already made it to the third round. In fact, in the last video, we've already seen a Santa Claus Hillbilly Jim make it to the third round. Do we need another? This one is a little bit better because it does have some additional graphics, such as the painted on snowflake graphics, which is amazing. The built-in Santa Claus hat is incredible, and I love the built-in, obviously, the candy cane, which is awesome. So, I don't know, man. This is so freaking done. This is done so well. And Hillbilly Jim is a thicker, more playable figure, I think. But obviously, something like this with the built-in, you're not going to use this as a playable wrestling action figure. This is display only. I mean, really anything from Random Treasures, Big Rubber Guys, stuff like that. They're all, any of these like Hasbro style figures, LJN style figures, Remco style, any of that stuff is really display only. Yeah, they're playable if you want to, but they're not intended for play. They're intended for display for adults. For adult collectors. Could Hillbilly Jim win my tournament? I didn't think Hillbilly Jim legitimately had a chance of winning this tournament. But man, I'm looking at this figure and I'm looking at the graphics and I'm thinking about the elf Bobby Heenan. I'm like, well, shoot. I thought the elf had a chance of winning the tournament based on the different attributes and considering that it was a holiday themed figure. Why not? This has a little bit more to offer than that elf. Same built-on hat accessory, right? And even a built-in, no, Bobby Heenan didn't have no built-in accessory. With the built-in cane, I mean, that's something special. Multicolored. Didn't really have the same green and red built-on pants and jacket the way that the elf did. So Bobby Heenan did have a little bit more to it. But I think it is comparable enough. I don't know if this wins the tournament, but I can say that if this figure were to make it, not just into round 3, but I'm talking into round 4 and possibly in round 5, that if this was going up against one of the figures that I classify in my 10, that it's just not going to be a simple, hey, I classify these guys in my 10, and I don't think this is capable of winning. Hey, this is going to move forward. No, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to think about it for a while because this is that good. And maybe I will have to do another take and think about whether or not I should consider this to be my 10. This is done extremely well. I am going to put Hillbilly Jim in round 3, and Luke is done after 2 rounds. The last matchup is going to feature the one-of-a-kind Vince McMahon from Mark Hackenberg as he squares off against Kerry Von Erich. And Kerry Von Erich. So this is the Wrestling Writer version. I just wanted to specify. So I wanted to be particular about this one because I know the very first time I looked at this figure, the Kerry Von Erich, in my very first tournament back in March of 2022, this was a round 5 participant. So this was a very high level elite figure as part of my collection. And when you look at the detail that went into this figure, I mean, a lifelike face, the hair, again, I mean, the hair looks, the whole head sculpt looks lifelike. Fighting pose, it's not quite Tito Santana, so it's not quite as bad, but it's not exactly my preference to play pose. About, I don't know, maybe 2 years later, Ram Treasures came out with their own version of Kerry Von Erich, and they decided to come out with this basically this paint scheme. And I did bite the bullet and purchase the figure, but I'm like, no, I don't want this color scheme. I have this color scheme. I want something different. I told Net, hey, I don't care what color. I don't want this color. I don't care what color I get. It's open. I will let you make the decision of what you want to paint it. And that's when I got the, I don't know if you can see it behind me. No, you can't see it behind me. That's fine. But I want something with tassels. And that's where she got me the purple trunks, Kerry Von Erich with the tassels. And I think it was like a 1989 Battle Royal I saw where he was wearing that outfit. I'm like, okay. So now I have something to kind of compare that look to. So that was pretty awesome. Now the second tournament I made, this was a first round elimination. And I'm like, man, how do you go from a 5th round participation to a first round elimination? Of course, he did go up against Bruiser Brody. And Bruiser Brody squared off against elite figure after elite figure after elite figure after elite figure in every single round of that second tournament. That was a most deserving victory in that tournament. Ram Treasures, Kerry Von Erich didn't make it out of the first round, but Kerry Von Erich from Wrestling Writer did, and he might make it into round 3 this time, and kind of make up for that second tournament. He does go up against Vince McMahon. Now, I did reach out to Mark. I'm like, look, bud, I wanted that one of a kind LJN version that LJN presented to Vince McMahon. Obviously, Vince had his own copy. You know, the red jacket that you get from Series 5, everybody got released in stores. But this is the kind of copy that, you know, they presented to Vince directly. I wanted that custom for myself. And he went out, made a copy for me, and he never disappoints. His work was absolutely amazing. And I think Jason Nupp mentioned that he saw he may have seen the same figure in like some kind of like cigar aficionado. How did he pronounce the word? Aficionado magazine or something. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But it was very important that I got this particular figure in. And you know me, man. When I look at like the back of the LJN cards, for example, I want all of those original prototype designs. So when I see like original prototype or original one of a kind type deal of something like this for like Vince McMahon, I'm like, yeah, I want that stuff for my design. When I look at my LJN collection and I see all these different prototypes or um, different paint schemes or different variations of the figures, you know what? It's were they important when I first started collecting? No, not really. But over time, as I completed the collection, it just gave me something else to collect to so that I could still build onto the collection. So yeah, it became important, and I started adding more variants to the collection, and this was awesome. Vince McMahon, even though I hate having fused arms to the chest, that whole one arm body slam thing is still fantastic. He's still a very playable figure if you wanted to. I mean, nobody's using Vince as a wrestler. As a resin figure, that hurts this particular figure. I mean, nobody's using this as a wrestling figure, so neither one of them are going to be playable wrestling figures. But I absolutely love the look of this figure and the uniqueness and what this overall look means for a collection standpoint. Yeah, I got to go with Vince on this. I got to go with Vince on this all day long. I don't know how long this Vince is going to stay in this tournament, but man, I want to keep him in for as long as I possibly can, and I'm excited to see him move on to round 3. Not a 5th round this time, but at least he wasn't a first time elimination, so I think that's something. Kerry Von Erich, 2nd round elimination. Not the best of luck, but like I said, with this particular pose, I think a 5th rounder the first time, I think that right there, I think that was out of the ordinary. I think 1st or 2nd round elimination, I think that's more reminiscent of this figure, to be honest. But guys, that completes the 2nd round. I will most likely, probably not guaranteed, but I most likely will do a top 10 or my favorite 10 figures that I think might win this tournament prior to doing round 3, and kind of see what you guys think, how you guys feel about those figures. And it might be a shorter video, probably 5-10 minutes, maybe. We'll see what happens. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care, everybody.